Welcome patrons! One of my favorite things about the Dragon Age series is that magic has consequences. When to enter the Fade, hope you like human sacrifice or a metric ton of lyrium. But it might surprise some that there are rules to how magic works in the world of Thedas, so let's discuss the laws of magic. A codex entry describes that magic has its limits, and there are many things that are not possible. It goes on to outline 3 specific things that it cannot do. No teleporting, no bypassing the veil to enter the Fade physically, and no bringing back the dead. Immediately, everyone should be questioning all 3 rules because it seems like we have seen a lot of these rules be broken. So let's start with the obvious, entering the Fade. The codex entry reads that only once has this barrier been overcome, and reputedly the spell requires 2/3 of the lyrium in the Tevinter Imperium as well as the lifeblood of several hundred slaves. So it admits that it can be done, as the Magister Siderial had once done this, and it makes no reference to the Inquisitor, as this was written well before that time. I have a major point about this, and that this rule can still technically be true, but unfortunately we need to wait till later in the video, so just hold on for a second. Teleportation. There are a ton of examples of what looks like teleportation in the games. Enemy mages in DA2, that crazed hermit in DAO, the Elven Sentinels, and Flemeth in Dragon Age Inquisition. But note I said look like, because it apparently isn't. It's described that this isn't teleportation, but rather super speed, much like Fade Step. Or in the case of the hermit, illusion magic. So yes, we see Flemeth casually sauntering into the clearing, but we sadly didn't get to see her hauling ass from wherever she was at. This also brings into question Illuvians, but technically it's not teleportation, it's a portal. You still have to walk to get where you want, but the distance is shortened via magical wormhole. Which, good lord, how is it easier to create a magical wormhole than to teleport? Bringing back the dead. Speaking of Flemeth, she will be a good example of this. So the codex entry describes that a truly great healer may bring someone back from the very precipice of death when breath and heartbeat have ceased but the spirit still clings to life. But once the spirit has fled the body, it cannot be recalled. So I would argue that the technical law here is that a soul that has moved on to wherever souls go cannot come back. But if a soul has not left, say like that of Mythal, then it seems like it's possible to live again, so to speak. This would also explain archdemons in Corypheus. There's some sort of connection that they have to the world, and their soul is able to stay connected to the world of the living and to live again. Schools of magic. It's described that there are 4 schools of magic, meaning that the Circle of Magi has been able to divide all known magic spells into 4 basic categories, and those 4 can be divided into 2 subcategories, schools of matter and schools of energy. Schools of energy. Spirit magic, described as the School of Mystery, the ephemeral school. This is the study of the invisible energies which surround us at all times, yet are outside of nature. This includes things like manipulation of magical energy itself and even summoning spirits. Primal magic. A very powerful and my personal favorite type of magic, primal is all about the elements. Think fire, ice, lightning. As the codex entry reads, this is the magic of war. Schools of matter. Entropy magic. Also called the School of Negation, this is the force of erosion, decay, and destruction. This is one of the more nebulous schools, so example spells from this school would include horror, sleep, and drain life. While other spells might cause destruction, like many of the primal magic spells, the magic worked is not focused on that destruction, it's focused on the energy it created. This school uses magical energy to actively destroy and dissolve, no flashy fire or walking corpses involved, just destruction. Creation magic. Perhaps the complete opposite to the previous school, creation magic, well, creates. It builds and transforms. This school is also described as being the hardest to master, and those who are able to do so are in high demand, as healing magics belong to this type of school. Sources of magic. So to jump right into this segment, where does magic come from? This section is going to cross into theory territory, so keep in mind that some of this could easily be proven wrong at any point. Anyway, the Fade is an obvious answer for where magic comes from, and is a correct one, as most magic done by mages is drawn from across the veil from the Fade. But there are other sources. These other sources being lyrium, blood, and the blight. Now usually I would break these down into categories and go over each one, but the 3 connect in weird ways and might even be technically related and perhaps could be counted as 2 different or perhaps even 1 category. Magic from blood is considered its own school, the most forbidden school of magic. It's described that it used to not be considered its own thing, as it was able to do the magics of other schools, but it was later found that blood magic can do spells that other schools cannot. The codex entry seems to describe it as being able to control parts of the Fade even. We know that lyrium is the blood of titans, and we are also told that magic based around the blight is very similar to blood magic. So a lot is centered around blood. Blight-based magic, while described as being similar to blood magic in its feel, whatever that means, is also said to be very powerful and dangerous, even more so than blood magic. Lyrium, on the other hand, is more similar to Fade-based magic, and is even said to bridge the gap between the waking world and the Fade. What's interesting is that we could put these magic sources in order, Fade being first, then Lyrium magic, as it's the most similar to that, Blood magic is next, as both are technically blood, and then Blight magic, as it's supposed to work similar to blood magic. To me, this almost looks like it could be a gradient of some sort, although what each end means is unknown to me. Another interpretation could be there are two sets of magic pools here, one joining Fade and Lyrium and the other Blood and Blight, almost a positive and negative force, the imaginary and the reality. Honestly, this is either beginning of something or a whole lot of nothing, and at this point I can't really tell the difference. This is also where I want to jump back to the rules of magic, and also I want to step farther into the theory category. So, alright, the setup is that magic is unable to breach the Fade and let other people in physically, except that one time with the Second Sin and then other time with the orb in your Inquisitor. So, I would argue that even though we have seen others physically enter the Fade, this rule still holds true, if you think of those rules as applying to non-Soulless Fade-based magic, which this is a really weird way to word this, so let me explain. The Magister's Sidereal was only able to enter the Fade through the blood of thousands of elven slaves and Lyrium. The Inquisitor was only able to enter the Fade by their mark, a piece of magic we now know to belong to the person who created the Veil in the first place. What if a property of the Veil was to repel Fade-based magic? Solas put up the Veil for a reason. He obviously didn't want people to enter the realm of the Fade. Even he says he did not expect to walk in the Fade physically. Whatever happened to cause the creation of the Veil, we know that ancient elves did not want it to be there, and one assumes that someone attacked it at least once, so it would be natural to try and make the Veil resistant to the most common form of elven magic. But perhaps he knew he didn't want it to last forever, so he created the Orb, a key with the sole purpose of unlocking the Veil. The Veil, the Orb, and its related mark is Solas's magic, designed to hold back when needed and to be brought down when wanted. But what of the Magisters? Perhaps the Magisters figured this out, that there was a way to open the Fade. Perhaps they were able to find the keyhole, so to speak, not to say that there's a physical representation of a keyhole, but that they notice that the Veil reacts to certain magic in a certain way, and they simply combined them, their ritual a skeleton key to the Fade, which was a combination of Lyrium and blood, perhaps even blight magic. Now, looping this back around to the laws of magic, while magic from blood and blight might be able to pierce the Veil, we have no source to say that magic from the Fade is able to. Hence, the laws of magic, as we know it, might only apply to magic of the Fade. Extra bits. Okay, so this probably won't be the first time this happens, but I just couldn't find a way to naturally place this piece of information into the video, so I'm just going to vomit it out here. There is a such thing as theoretical magic, and there are people such as Felix, who may not be magically gifted, but are able to prove that different types of magic is possible through mathematical equations. There is really no other reason to put that there other than I thought that was a really cool tidbit. Anyway, and that, patrons, is what we know on the world of magic. If you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong, comments about your own fan theory, feel free to tweet me at @GildaThalon on Twitter or send a PM to user Gillanon on Reddit. Duress, you're all.